Hi everyone, my name is Apuraj Garikapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Apai. Previously, as Jin Woo enters the double dungeon, he paused, realizing this was where everything had started, though the place felt different now. As his eyes scanned the towering statues, he recognized they were neither alive nor monsters, just lifeless puppets controlled by something unseen. Sensing a single source of magic in the chamber, he walked toward it and demanded an answer. Silence followed until at last the winged statue moved and declared that he had finally arrived. Meanwhile in Japan, a plane touches down at Tokyo International Airport. From its steps, Yuri Orlov, Russia's top-ranked barrier-type hunter. Almost instantly, the press swarms him with cameras and questions. The reporters demand to know how he intends to block off the massive gate threatening the city. Kamlaya Orlov explains his method. He will draw a vast magic circle encircling the gate, then pour his own mana into it, forming a barrier strong enough to prevent anything inside from escaping. When pressed further, the reporters ask if he can truly seal an S-rank gate on his own. Orlov admits he cannot maintain such a barrier with only his strength. However, the circle he constructs does not rely solely on him. If a large supply of mana crystals is placed throughout Tokyo, the circle will absorb their energy. Over time, it will continue to gather power until the barrier transforms into an impenetrable wall. Confident before the flashing cameras, Orlov addresses the public directly. He declares that he is the one who will save their lives and insists they remember who stood between them and disaster. Back in Korea, Chairman Go Gun-hee watches the televised interview. He quietly reflects that while Orlov may or may not succeed in sealing an S-rank gate, the outcome of failure is already certain. Tokyo would be destroyed. Turning away from the screen, he asks his right-hand man, Woo Jin-chul, what hunter Sung Jin-woo has been doing recently. Woo reports that Jin-woo has been actively clearing gates around Seoul. He adds that Jin-woo's Ajin Guild has filed requests to take over every portal marked on a particular list. The issue, however, is that those gates lie within districts normally managed by the White. After some thought, Chairman Go Gun-hee approves the request regardless, deciding to support Jin-woo's moves despite the political risks. As Woo Jin-chul prepares to leave, his phone rings. He steps aside to take the call. On the line, a field officer reports the sudden appearance of another gate. At first, it seems routine, but the location stands out. It has opened at the very same school recently attacked by orcs. Investigators confirmed the worst. It is not just any portal, but a double dungeon. Back inside the double dungeon, Sung Jin-woo stood before the winged statue that had come alive. The creature shattered a stone slab and acknowledged his arrival, claiming that he had finally reached this stage. Jin-woo questioned whether the being itself was responsible for summoning him here and whether destroying the slab was allowed. The entity confirmed it, but dismissed his question of identity. Instead, it told Jin-woo he was asking the wrong thing. Rather than wondering who the statue was, he should first uncover the truth about himself. Declaring that the final trial was about to begin, the being promised to reveal everything only of Jin-woo could endure until the end. At that moment, the stone statues surrounding the chamber began to move, slowly advancing. Jin-woo prepared to summon his shadow army, but the entity snapped its fingers. The summons were suppressed. This was to be a personal test. Only Jin-woo would be measured here. His servants were irrelevant. System restrictions followed instantly. Potions and shop items were locked. Recovery from quest rewards or level-up bonuses was denied. An escape from the chamber was no longer possible until the test ended. Jin-woo realized every advantage he had relied on had been stripped away, yet his inventory remained untouched. He clenched his fists, deciding he would fight using only his strength. The first stone soldier swung its massive sword at him. Jin-woo caught the blade in midair, snapped it clean in two, and hurled one half into the statue's face. As the shard embedded itself, Jin-woo rushed forward, driving the fragment deeper with a crushing kick. The other statues charged, but Jin-woo's movements blurred. He slipped past their strikes, leaped high, and plunged his dagger through one's head. From the corner, another statue loosened an arrow. Jin-woo reacted instantly, slicing the projectile midair and kicking a shard back into the archer's face, shattering it. One by one, the guardians fell to his relentless assault. As he fought, Jin-woo realized something. Once these statues had seemed impossibly fast, like they were teleporting. But now with his sharpened eyes and honed reflexes, he could track each of their movements. They were powerful but no longer untouchable. Above, the winged figure hovered silently, observing every clash. It admitted, at least to itself, that Jin Woo's progress was remarkable, such strength born within the limits of a human body. But the trial was far from over. The creature raised its hand, and the temple floor shook violently. From the shadows of the chamber, an enormous stone colossus emerged, dwarfing the others by several times. Its heavy steps made the ground tremble, its presence overwhelming, even compared to the guardians Jin Woo had just dismantled. As the giant advanced, the entity watched with a faint smirk, eager to see how far Sung Jin Woo had truly come. The scene shifts to the chairman's office, where Ga Gun-hee is holding a private meeting. In official places, a set of documents before him, explaining that the contract clearly states Japan will hand over all rights to the essence stones found on Jeju Island. Sitting across from him, Matsumoto Shija, the chairman of the Japanese Hunters Association, calmly explains the reasoning behind this unusual proposal. Their objective is to hire the Korean hunter, Sung Jin Woo. Chairman Go responds carefully, reminding Matsumoto that Jin Woo is not formally affiliated with the Korean Hunters Association. Matsumoto acknowledges this fact, clarifying that what they seek is not ownership or control over Jin Woo, but simply the Korean Association's assistance in arranging a meeting. They had been unable to reach him directly, and this offer was their last resort. Hearing this, Go Gun-hee reflects inwardly. He cannot believe that Japan is willing to sacrifice such a vast fortune simply for a chance to speak with Jin Woo. He suspects that their desperation comes from their inability to deal with the looming threat of the massive S-rank gate in Tokyo, especially after the death of their strongest hunter, Gotoruji. After a pause, Chairman Go places the documents back on the table. He then requests to continue the discussion without interpreters present. Speaking in fluent Japanese, he shocks Matsumoto, who stares at him in disbelief. When asked how he knows the language, Go calmly explains that his father had once run a small business in Japan when he was younger. Once the interpreters leave the room, the atmosphere changes. Chairman Go addresses Matsumoto directly, warning him that if this is yet another one of his deceptive schemes, he would do well to end it. Immediately, Matsumoto looks startled and asks what he means. But Go Gun-hee presses further, revealing that he already knows the Blade Guild has severed ties with Matsumoto. Startled, Matsumoto rises to his feet, demanding to know how the Korean chairman came by this information. Go explains that it was obvious. He had observed how the Blade Guild rejected financial support from the Japanese Hunters Association, choosing instead to rely solely on government subsidies. Once the Blade Guild had been the backbone of the association under the leadership of Gotoruji, but with Gota's death, the balance of power in Japan had crumbled, leaving the association weakened and struggling to maintain control. He warns Matsumoto that if the gate in Tokyo is not sealed properly, the entire burden of failure will fall upon him. At that moment, Go Gun-hee produces a recording device. He explains that it once belonged to Gota's team. He accuses Matsumoto of harboring malicious intentions, declaring that all the tragedies unfolding in Japan, the death of Goto, the collapse of the Blade Guild, the infighting between guilds, and the countless lives lost, are the direct result of Matsumoto's actions. When Matsumoto nervous, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Apply grow naturally. He asks about the device. Chairman Go reveals that it is directly connected to Matsumoto's personal receiver. Without hesitation, he clenches his fist, shattering the device with such overwhelming strength that the table beneath it cracks apart. Go Gun-hee then speaks with unwavering resolve. He states that he is not so heartless as to allow an entire nation, and by extension the whole of Asia, to fall into ruin because of the selfish scheming of a single man. He ends the meeting by saying that in the end, Matsumoto will have no choice but to be grateful to Hunter Sang Jin Woo for this one. Meanwhile, back inside the double dungeon, Sang Jin Woo continued his desperate battle against the endless wave of stone creatures. He cut down many of them, yet no matter how many fell, more kept advancing. His attention shifted toward the colossal statue at the back of the chamber. Its glowing eyes locked on him. The giant began preparing an attack, realizing that he couldn't dodge in time. Jin Woo quickly used Commander's Touch, lifting several of the smaller statues, in forming a makeshift shield, but the massive beam tore through them with ease, disintegrating the summoned soldiers and shattering the barrier. Jin Woo barely escaped with his life, thinking to himself that a direct hit would kill him instantly, even with his current strength. Knowing that the smaller enemies would keep coming unless he dealt with their source, Jin Woo decided to target that larger statue first. The giant lifted its foot and brought it down with devastating force. Jin Woo dashed forward at the last second, avoiding the stomp that left a deep crater in the ground. The statue smirked as if it believed it had crushed him, but Jin Woo reappeared, rushing toward it once more. The statue prepared another deadly attack, but Jin Woo activated Monarch's domain, enhancing his speed and move behind the massive figure. Using ruler's authority, he realized the gravitational force he now commanded was stronger than ever. Even with just a small amount of mana, he was able to affect such a massive target. Seizing the opening, he unleashed mutilation, slashing the statue's face with his Demon King's daggers. To his shock, the blades barely scratched its surface. Frustrated but determined, Jin Woo switched tactics. Using brute strength, he targeted a small crevice in the statue's head, grabbed hold, and unleashed a devastating strike. For the first time, the massive creature reacted with panic. From above, the winged entity observed with surprise. The being remarked that Jin Woo had chosen a brutal approach against its carefully crafted creation. But Jin Woo did not stop. He relentlessly hammered his fists into the giant stone creature. Pouring every ounce of his strength into a final blow, he declared that he would show what it truly meant to stand at level 103. With a thunderous strike, the massive statue toppled, crashing violently into the ground. Not wasting a moment, Jin Woo leapt down into the horde of smaller stone monsters. They surged toward him, but he spread his hand and used Dominator's touch, slamming them all into the ground at once. The chamber fell silent as the last of the creatures were wiped out. Effortlessly, with the battlefield cleared, Jin Woo turned his gaze toward the winged entity still hovering above. The being applauded, clearly impressed by the display of strength. Jin Woo, however, remembered the promise that his questions would finally be answered. But instead of keeping its word, the creature declared that the test was not yet over. It reminded him that it still remained alive. At that moment, a system notification appeared before Jin Woo. An urgent quest had been issued: defeat the enemy within the allotted time. 10 minutes remain. Failure will result in immediate death by cardiac arrest. The winged entity then revealed itself as the true challenge, stating that it was the final test. Jin Woo demanded to know who or what this being really was. With a smirk, the creature finally gave its answer. It was the architect of the system, the one who had overseen every step of his growth. It then asked if Jin Woo was satisfied with that explanation. Outside the dungeon, Association Director Woo Jinchul arrived with 7 elite hunters from the Korean Hunters Association. As they neared the gate, a suffocating wave of mana poured out, chilling everyone to the bone. He asked the others if they could feel it too. The sensation was unlike anything they had experienced before. He quickly checked which guilds were on standby and learned that the Hunter Guild was prepared to raid. Both Cha Hyun and Choi Jong-in, 2 of Korea's strongest S-rank hunters, had already agreed to participate. Realizing how dire the situation could become, Woo Jinchul immediately ordered them to join the raid. Inside the dungeon, Sung Jin Woo braced himself for his true showdown with the architect. The winged being transformed its wings into muscular arms and charged forward at incredible speed, slamming a devastating punch into Jin Woo and sending him crashing into the wall. Without pause, the architect pressed the assault. Jin Woo barely dodged and tried to create distance, but the attacks came relentlessly. A barrage of punches rained down on him. He blocked each blow, refusing to fall. The architect admitted that Jin Woo's defense was impressive, claiming he was exceeding expectations. Then with a heavy strike to Jin Woo's face, the being thought the fight was finished, only to be stunned when Jin Woo retaliated. The hunters surged forward and delivered a brutal punch that knocked the architect back several feet. A grin spread across the architect's face. For the first time, it admitted it was enjoying a battle against a human opponent. Jin Woo quickly analyzed the situation. The being had invited him here the moment he surpassed level 100, expecting him to be powerless before it. But Jin Woo refused to accept defeat. He demanded answers. Why the system was created, why he had been chosen as his player, and what fate awaited this world. The architect lunged again, mocking the idea that Jin Woo thought killing him would reveal those answers. Knowing close combat was dangerous, Jin Woo attempted to fight at range with ruler's authority, hurling objects from a distance, but the architect unleashed a massive explosion, nullifying the attack. Jin Woo realized with frustration that the being could use the same abilities he had. Range combat was useless. The architect then declared that the truth had already been decided long ago, since the moment the system had been designed. It summoned every weapon in the chamber, demanding to know how such a system was even possible. Jin Woo asked how a mere architect could give him so much power. Calmly, the creature explained that it had not chosen him at all. In fact, it had been against his selection. Its role was only to design and moderate the player's selection system. With just 6 minutes left on the quest timer, Jin Woo had no choice but to face the architect head on. The winged being ascended, declaring it would now fight with its full power. Its attacks came like a storm, yet Jin Woo moved with supernatural precision, vanishing and reappearing. With each dodge, he noticed something strange. His senses were sharpening, his body growing faster. He could read every movement of his opponent. Seizing an opening, Jin Woo landed a clean strike to the architect's face, stunning the being. The architect was bewildered. Even at full force, Jin Woo was keeping up and even surpassing him. With a swift slash, Jin Woo severed one of the being's arms. The architect looked down at the wound in disbelief. It realized that even though this body was only a construct, Jin Woo's attacks still caused pain. Observing him more closely, the architect finally understood why he had been chosen. Buried deep inside the hunter was something more, something beyond human. Enraged, the architect roared, refusing to accept it. With fury, it resurrected every fallen stone soldier in the chamber. The countdown ticked down to 3 minutes. Jin Woo rushed headfirst into battle once again. With ruler's authority, he swept through the revived enemies. A massive statue swung at him, but he dodged effortlessly and closed the gap toward the architect, striking with overwhelming speed and severing another arm. The architect countered with a crushing blow, sending Jin Woo crashing back into the wall. As he rose, Jin Woo saw a familiar face. The colossal stone soldier who had nearly ended his. Before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Apai grow naturally. Life during his first visit to this dungeon. Fueled by rage, he smashed his elbow into its skull, shattering it in two. Turning back with 2 minutes left, Jin Woo gathered all his strength for one final attack. He unleashed everything in a single devastating strike. The entire chamber erupted in a massive explosion. When the dust cleared, Jin Woo stood victorious. The architect had fallen. With its final breath, the being whispered that the answers Jin Woo sought lay within himself. A notification appeared before his eyes. The data stored within his memory would be retrieved. The architect told him that the choice was his to make. After a moment of hesitation, Jin Woo accepted. Suddenly, light engulfed him, and his spirit was transported to another realm. Below him stretched a sight both terrifying and awe-inspiring. An endless army of monsters. The sight left Jin Woo frozen. Every creature in that army was gazing upward, and when Jin Woo followed their gaze, he saw it. A massive gate hanging in the sky, set against a purple backdrop. From myself and high orcs, to goblins, giants, and countless other monsters, the army stretched endlessly across the battlefield. Jin Woo realized that if such an army ever crossed into Earth, humanity would be utterly destroyed. Then the sky split open. Soldiers, clad in radiant armor, with wings like angels, descended from above. These were the Silver Soldiers, the army of heaven. An epic battle erupted between the Silver Soldiers and the endless horde of monsters. The ground shook with each clash. Weapons shattered, armor crumbled, and screams of agony filled the air. At first, the Silver Soldiers held the upper hand, overwhelming the monsters with divine strength. But then the tide shifted. One by one, the Silver Soldiers froze in their advance as a new presence entered the battlefield. Jin Woo felt it immediately, the overwhelming aura of a monarch. A shadowy figure stepped forward and raised its hand. Instantly, the fallen monsters began to rise again. Using shadow extraction, the being resurrected the dead into its own army. Jin Woo's eyes widened in shock. This was the Shadow Monarch, and immortal army was born from death itself. The slain monsters returned with black and blood. Their bodies were forged in shadow. Jin Woo trembled as he realized the truth. The monarch's ability to summon was beyond comprehension. An endless tide of shadow soldiers, each more fearsome than the last. The silver soldiers, once so dominant, began to falter. The battlefield descended into chaos. As shadow and silver clashed violently, the ground split and the skies thundered with the weight of their war. The Silver Army should have claimed victory, yet with the arrival of a single being, everything changed. Wherever the Shadow Monarch walked, destruction followed. Using a power Jin Woo instantly recognized as Dominion's authority, the monarch tore through the silver soldiers. Every fallen shadow rose again, endlessly overwhelming the divine army. The battlefield belonged to him. Victory seemed inevitable for the Shadow Monarch and his army, until they appeared. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the depths of the double dungeon. Wu Jinchul, Cha Hien, Choi Jongin, and several other hunters arrive at the chamber. The moment they step inside, they sense the enormous pressure of mana radiating through the air. Cha Hien turns toward Wu Jinchul, questioning whether he is certain that Jin Woo is inside. Something about this energy feels wrong. This mana is powerful, but it doesn't belong to Jin Woo. If not his, then whose could it be? As the hunters advance deeper into the chamber, they are struck with shock. Before them lie shattered remains of massive stone statues and broken fragments of stone soldiers scattered across the floor. Wu Jinchul mutters to himself, realizing that the rumors were true. The legendary statues and sculptures really had existed. Before the group can gather their thoughts, a cold voice echoes throughout the chamber. It remarks that humans were never invited here, calling their presence an unexpected intrusion. Startled, the hunters hesitate, some wondering if they had only imagined a monster speaking, but the truth becomes clear as the figure behind the voice reveals itself. The architect steps forward, its voice filled with disdain as it commands the hunters to be silent. It accuses them of disturbing the king's slumber. Confusion spreads among the hunters as they question among themselves who this king could possibly be. In the corner of the chamber, their eyes fall on Song Jin-woo. He stands silently, unmoving, as though lost in another world entirely. Suddenly, the architect makes its move. With terrifying speed, it dashes past several hunters, and in an instant, some are cut down. The architect declares that strong humans like these would make perfect offerings for the king. Meanwhile, Jin Woo's consciousness drifts elsewhere. Within his vision, countless portals begin to open one after another, filling the void with ominous energy. From within those rifts, endless armies emerge, marching forward with terrifying might. Jin Woo recognizes them instantly. They are the armies of the monarchs. Among them is Kuresha, the Plague Monarch, Baron, the Demon King, and Ra Khan, the Beast Monarch. Others also appear, powerful monarchs from distant clans, such as Yagman and Leja. Among the advancing forces, a colossal wolf steps forth, radiating savage killing intent. Its very presence confirms that the Beast Monarch has arrived. The vast armies grind to a halt, assembling information before the Shadow Monarch. The air grows tense, heavy with anticipation. Both sides know what comes next. The stage is set, and the final battle is about to begin. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Apai grow naturally. The scene shifts back to the hunters inside the double dungeon, where they struggle to defend themselves against the architect and its stone soldiers. Choi Jongin takes command of the situation. He instructs the hunters to use every skill they have and to move the wounded toward the back. The architect watches with disdain. It declares that by the time its puppets fall, anyone left alive will receive the great honor of witnessing the king's awakening, if any manage to survive. As one of the colossal statues charges forward, Choi Jongin quickly orders everyone to take cover. The massive strike slams down, but Choi manages to dodge. He retaliates with a blazing fireball aimed directly at the statue's face. He urges the others to use this opening to destroy the remaining stone soldiers. Wu Jinchul steps up and throws a powerful punch at the colossal statue. To his shock, the blow has no effect at all. Choi attacks, again with another fireball, but even his magic fails to leave so much as a scratch. Panic spreads among the guild members as they realize none of their attacks are working. With options running out, Choi Jongin comes to a conclusion. The only hope is to wake Song Jin-woo, who appears trapped as if under hypnosis. He hurls a fireball toward Jin-woo, believing it to be the only way to break him free. But before the attack can land, the architect intercepts it and launches itself at Choi. Furious that anyone would dare disturb The king's slumber. Choi freezes in shock, convinced this is the end for him. But before the architect can strike, Wu Jinshul and several other hunters intercept its assault, barely saving him. Meanwhile, Song Jin-woo remains lost within his vision. He finds himself witnessing a colossal battle between the Shadow Army and countless demon clans. He observes how the shadows, even after being cut down, rise again endlessly. He thinks to himself that if those had been his soldiers, he would have already run out of mana. But the Shadow Monarch's power is different. It seems like a bottomless well of energy. Jin-woo begins to wonder if the Shadow Monarch had not been aligned with the monsters after all, or if there was some deeper internal conflict between them. The battle rages until finally silence falls across the battlefield. Corpses of both demons and shadows litter the ground. From amidst the carnage, the Shadow Monarch approaches the defeated leader of the demon clans. His voice is filled with fury as he demands to know why they betrayed him when they had the chance to end the war that day. The demon only responds with defiance, mocking that it is unfortunate he failed to eliminate the monarch. The monarch in rage demands an answer once more, but the creature snarls back in the demonic tongue. In his fury, the Shadow Monarch grabs the demon by the mouth and crushes its skull with his bare hand. Yet even that brutal strike is not enough to kill it. The monarch stares deeply into its eyes, puzzled as though he recognizes them from somewhere before. He tears away the demon's helmet and, at last, realizes the truth. It is Baron, the Demon King. Shocked, the monarch wonders why Baron was here among the clans. But then his attention falls to his own body. He looks down at his hands in confusion and the truth becomes clear. The one fighting the demon clans and the silver soldiers had been Sung Jin-woo himself all along. Jin-woo reels at the revelation, stunned that he had not realized it sooner. Then in his chest he feels it, a heartbeat, but not just one. He discovers he has two hearts, one normal human heart and another dark and black. Before he can process what this means, silver soldiers begin to descend from the skies above. A cold notification echoes in his mind. Playback of retrieved data has ended. Back inside the double dungeon, the architect turns his attention to Cha Ha-in. He calls her interesting and challenges her to push beyond his designs. Cha launches forward with her sword dance, but the architect blocks the strike with ease. He counters immediately, his blow slashing across her shoulder. A sharp cry escapes her lips as pain overwhelms her. The architect explains coldly that the dungeon system anticipates every possible outcome. He reveals that their weapons, no matter how strong, are useless against his statues. Suddenly Choi Jong-in intervenes, landing a surprise strike on the architect. His attack buys Cha the chance to dash toward Jin-woo, but before she can reach him, she glances back, and her heart sinks. The architect has already appeared behind her, his hand stretching forward to grab her. Cha narrowly dodges, barely escaping his grasp. The architect notices something strange, a faint shadow lingering on her shoulder. With curiosity, he questions what her relationship is with Sung Jin-woo. Cha replies firmly that she is his friend, and that she came here to save him. The architect smiles ominously and declares that he will give her a chance. He states that, on this very day, one of the greatest monarchs in the world will rise. She may bear witness to it, but the rest of the humans will die. Before the architect can act further, another voice cuts through the chamber. A furious strike follows. Jin-woo appears and smashes his fist across the architect's face, shattering its jaw. The creature crashes to the floor as Jin-woo steps forward, demanding to know what had been done to his body. The hunters exhale in relief. Sung Jin-woo has awakened. Without hesitation, Jin-woo pins the architect down and crushes his head under his foot. The architect screams in protest, insisting that Jin-woo is not the king. It cries out, in disbelief that he can control himself even while bearing the black heart. From this, Jin-woo realizes the truth. The overwhelming power coursing through him is coming directly from the black heart. A system notification appears. His mana has increased by 100,000. Jin-woo studies the architect's reaction. This development was never intended. The black heart was not supposed to strengthen him. Even the retrieved data he had absorbed had not revealed the full truth. He questions the architect, demanding to know why he had opposed choosing him as a player. What was the purpose of selecting someone? What did the system truly intend to achieve? The architect, desperate, cries out that Jin-woo has doomed them all. By claiming the Shadow Monarch's power, he has drawn the gaze of the other monarchs. they will not remain silent. Jin Woo unsheaths his daggers, pressing for an answer. At the same time, panic spreads among the hunters. Around them, the once motionless statues begin to stir, coming to life once again. The architect warns that if Jin Woo kills him, there will be no one left to stop the dolls. Jin Woo responds coolly, if the architect dies, he will simply deal with the statues himself. The architect insists that if he perishes, the entire system will collapse. Jin Woo smirks, remarking that there was always a chance he could return to being nothing more than an E-rank hunter. He reasons that even if the system's creator disappears, it does not mean the system itself will vanish. The architect desperately tries to access the system, but notifications flash repeatedly before him. Access denied. Stunned, he turns back toward Jin Woo, who declares that he will not only destroy the system, he will swallow it whole. The architect rejects this as impossible, insisting that it must be a system error. Overcome with rage, he lunges forward, but Jin Woo moves faster. With a swift motion of his daggers, he slices the architect into pieces. As the fragments of its body collapse to the ground, the architect utters one last prophecy. It warns that when the pillars of fire that hold the heavens are raised, an inevitable death will approach your way. Jin Woo, with a steely glint in his eyes and a cold smirk, simply responded, as you please. The episode ends here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Appy. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.